I wasn't making a whole lot of money. So it wasn't like I had the ability to really pay that down. I also had horrible spending habits. I liked buying clothes. I like going out to eat, all these different things. And so I got to a point where I was like, all right, I got to figure this the fuck out.
Caleb Ralston. If you've never heard of him, he's the guy behind people, brands such as Gary Vaynerchuk and Alex Homozis and probably his missus stuff later as well. I came across Caleb because, I saw him once going up an escalator in New York and Hudson Yard. I was like, that beard, majestic red beard is cool. Wonder where he's going. And then I realized he was doing Gary stuff. This was years ago. And now I get to meet him properly and hang out with him. And he's recently released a video, a 6-hour video of him just going off about how to build your personal brand and all the little things, strategies and tactics behind it. And there's even a PDF, a free PDF workbook of you to go through it. So talking about accountability in action, this guy's just done it. And then from there, he's got this other thing we'll mention later called Town Hall, which is really interesting. But Caleb, thanks for coming onto the show. What do you reckon of that intro?
That was wild. What, you were at HY and saw me going up the escalator?
Yeah, I remember like a film crew going up there. I was like, that's definitely going up to Gary's thing. This was, maybe it was a different redheaded beard man that looks like you.
We do all look the same.
This was 2018, October 2018.
Crazy.
Maybe,
I was there.
Yeah, there you go. So that was it. And I was trying to like, because I was there with my missus and proposed to her like a couple of days prior. And I was like, oh my God, let's go to Hudson Yards. Let's see if we can get into Gary's office. And I was fanboying him. This is like
crazy.
First year. And then 4 years later, I got to go to Vayner and hang out with the crew. I met David Rock and Tyler and a couple of other big
so
shots.
Cool, dude.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, dude.
What a small world.
It is. And us creators got to stick together and help each other out and share the world, not gatekeep. And man, you're the antidote of gatekeeping. This is crazy. This is great. Wait, you got the dog there. What sort of dog do you have?
Yeah, he's a golden doodle, and he can tend to be a little jumpy sometimes. I think somebody just rang the doorbell. Sorry about that.
Oh, fair enough. That's right. So Caleb, first things first, are you living your best life?
Wow, what an interesting question. I feel like I am living the best version of my life that I have so far to date. So I would say yes. Hopefully it'll get better, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's such an interesting question. I think I would answer it by saying yes and no. Things are better than they've ever been for me in all the arenas actually right now, which I'm unbelievably grateful for. It's crazy. But I also know there's a lot more I can be doing, not career-wise even, but more like personally and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. What's been the biggest win this year for you?
Well, I will have to keep it somewhat generalized due to some contractual obligations. But there's a brand that I really love and admire that it looks like I will be working with them in a certain like consulting capacity this year. And if that happens, that was like my 5 or 10 year goal happening in the first, 2 quarters of the year. So that I would call my big W. Sorry, it was so generalized.
No, that's
and
fine.
I'm sure soon I'll be able to talk about it more, but right now I got to keep it a little under wraps.
Oh man, I'm rooting for you, man. I'm excited.
Thank you.
And that's kind of like the theme of my last 10 years. I picked up my DSLR back in 2015 after a knee injury in football, and everything I ever thought about that was possible happened. Everything. And apart from maybe a G-Wagon collaboration for some reason, because it's the only car I fit in, being 6'10", and maybe like a airline and a accommodation thing around the world, I'm pretty stoked. But over the last kind of decade, you become this, or how long have you been creating for in terms of content or visual assets for yourself and other people.
Well, real quick, dude, you're 6'10".
Yeah.
Dude, one of the few humans on Earth that makes me feel short. I'm 6'7", so I know exactly what you're talking about with the vehicle problem.
Well, next time in New York, we'll catch up and we'll go around and tower over people.
Absolutely down. And feel like freaks. Yeah, so officially I have been doing this for money, so professionally for 16 years.
Yeah.
I've been making videos since I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, though. I stole my mom's Canon PowerShot, which was like a photo camera, but they had a video mode. It was dog shit, but me and my sister would film little skits in the backyard and shit. So yeah, I've been making content since I can remember.
Amazing. And what was throughout high school? Because a lot of the audiences are high school kids. What was high school like being a creative?
Ooh. This is going to be interesting because you have your teaching background, so maybe this won't. Well, no, but you talked about how the school system is messed up. So how much swearing can I do on this?
A lot.
All right, fuck yeah.
Go for it.
I was the fucking worst student in the fucking world. And so we're talking high school, but I'll back up actually. First grade, my teacher, who I will keep her name anonymous, she got so angry with me that she walks up to my desk, and I'm sure this was not according to any sort of regulations or anything, flips the desk over, and all of my assignments, this was probably 6 or 7 months into the year, all of my assignments, undone, completely unfilled out, fall out, right? Like I just didn't do it. And in high school, I was given a book by a character named Sean Cannell. He was the director of media at my local church, which was like crazy lucky for me. He gave me a book called Crush It, written by a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk. And in that book, I realized, holy shit, I can do video for a living. And there's this whole idea of like people talking about what they're passionate around on YouTube and making a full-time living. Like he talked about people are going to talk about the Smurfs and make a living. That's insane. And I was like, cool, mom and dad, I am going to drop out of high school. I don't want to go anymore. I already know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go balls to the wall on it. And they're like, no, you're not. That's not happening. And, I was like, fair enough. Okay. Is there a world where we could maybe compromise and I can do homeschooling? So I did homeschooling where I went in on Mondays, and it was a state accredited program. So I didn't get a GED. I got a diploma and all that shit. But I basically gamed the system so that I never had to do any of it. Because of the way that the system worked, man, I can't believe I'm saying this. And my teachers, I used to have this nightmare that my teacher would find out how I got through high school and would make me redo it. And this might give her enough proof to make it happen. But who cares? I was working full time. I was doing video production, but I also worked at Adidas or Adidas, however you like to say it. And I worked as a sales associate, just selling shoes at an outlet mall. And I looked, like I do now when I was like 15, 16 years old. And so I was working essentially like 38, 40 hours a week, like full time illegally. And so I had a good amount of money coming in for a, 15, 16-year-old living at home. And so I paid kids to do my work. I would go online and I would buy papers or things like that. Now, am I advising that? No, definitely not. I definitely, I'd say the first probably 6 years of my career, I spent way too much time crafting emails, like double, triple checking them because I didn't pay attention in English class. Like truly, because I was literally working.
Yeah, English was my second language, so I can relate to that heavily. What year was this all at 15?
2009, 2010, I think. 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like right when YouTube was like, YouTube came out in
What a
2006. So yeah. And yeah, dude, I just very quickly realized, all right, I'm not going to figure out my career and my life through school. That's not my route. This is not built for me. And I can work. And so I was working probably 80, 90-hour weeks in high school because I was working 35, 40 hours a week at Adidas. And then I was building a video production company for the bodybuilding and powerlifting industry on the side.
Were you doing anything else?
Yes, I was involved in my church, my like church youth group, the
Mhm.
worship band. I was part of that. Um, and I was competing in powerlifting at the time. And so yeah, I was doing quite a bit. The powerlifting I saw as very complimentary because I was building the video production company in that industry, in that niche. I was a consumer and I was an insider. So I knew it more than any other production company that was trying to get gigs with them. I spoke the lingo. I would stay up until 3 or 4 in the morning watching videos on why Sean Roden at the time ate the way that he did or whatever.
What
So
was what
yeah.
was what was filming Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler like?
Never filmed with Jay Cutler,
Oh, really?
and no, and worked with Ronnie from remotely. So I never actually filmed
Okay.
in person with Ronnie. I worked with his supplement company, built out a
Hmm.
lot of their initial wave of advertising and everything.
Hmm.
But the one character that is similar, I would argue, one of the greatest of all time is Flex Lewis, who won the Mr. Olympia. And that dude was wild. One, he's got a very strong accent. So understanding what he's saying sometimes, was a little tough. But yeah, I mean, that was an incredible experience. I remember I was 17 years old, flew out to Murfreesboro, Tennessee to film Flex Lewis Week for Weeder AMI was the company. They owned Flex Magazine online. And that was crazy. That was in, the middle of nowhere, Tennessee. And I remember we show up and one of the first things we went and did was go out to a field and blow up refrigerators with tannerite, just shooting guns and shit. I was like, wow, I came from Seattle, Washington. Like, this is not,
It's
typical.
not the usual.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very interesting. But yeah, never ended up filming with Jay Cutler or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, your teens, you say that you use whatever you're given as your advantage. How did you realize this was your advantage, and what did you roll? How did you roll your skill set into this profitability, like following your day job as a teenager? Because this is some serious self awareness shit, man. Like at an early age.
Well, I think what it was is I started as a consumer
Mm.
and I felt the problem, right? So like I was really into powerlifting and I'm an obsessive personality. So like when I got into it, I watched every powerlifter online. I'm talking the really niche guy that was doing the Shaiko method. You probably know what I'm talking about there. Like that's some Russian shit, right? Like I
I
was
used to be a PT. I get it.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I went really, really deep on that shit. And I learned a ton, but I was never entertained. I thought the videos were dog shit, right? Like
Mm.
and this sounds like I'm slamming him. I'm not. I think this an individual by the name of Mitsuru Okabe created the Battle for the Olympia series, and it was incredible. I mean, he gave access to people like we were watching Ronnie Coleman take his supplements in the morning, eat his grits with cheese, and then go to the gym, and then come back and watch Jeopardy while he's doing like client call. It was wild. But like the quality and the storytelling, I felt like were kind of lacking. And so I was like, well, this is something I'm passionate around powerlifting, bodybuilding. I don't see anything that I'm enjoying. I'm sure there's many other people feeling the same way. Oh wait, I happen to love making videos. Maybe I could start doing this. So that's
Yep.
really just kind of how it happened.
So then, in your early 20s, what was the biggest breakthrough following the bodybuilding scene?
So for me, I reached the age of 18 and had a panic attack because I realized that I need to provide for myself now
Mm.
and I'm going to move out and doing freelance work at the time because of the way I went about doing it was not conducive. It wasn't consistent. And I didn't know how to always be getting new clients for, the dry season or whatever. So I realized I needed a job. And at the same time, my cousin in law, Ruben Evans, was working at a company called Logos Bible Software, and they were hiring and they were looking for a text editor. That was it. It was a very basic role. And they gave me the opportunity for that. And that, I would say, was the biggest opportunity that came immediately after. There's been other crazy opportunities, but that was what set me down the path of like, doing this legitimately. Before I was like filmed with a Canon Vixia, and then eventually I upgraded to a Canon 7D and the DSLR Revolution. And I was filming with those cameras, and I was doing TV commercials occasionally for gyms and stuff like that, but it was never anything proper. I didn't, if you were to ask me, why'd you shoot this at 35 millimeters? I would be like, it looked cool. Like, I had no intentionality behind anything.
You weren't really a tech nerd. You were just getting it done.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, it was all by feeling, and I couldn't articulate why. And even worse, I could never articulate what someone else should do. And so that was very novice. And Logos was kind of the era where I started to learn, why did you cut on this frame versus 2 frames over? Very, very in depth.
So you were more practical first and then go back to theory later if you had to.
Yeah. I learned on
YouTube,
where a lot of my friends went to film school.
Yeah. And where are they now?
Still writing their first film.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Truthfully.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Some of them are killing it, but like a lot of them are still stuck because I think school, if you are only capable of operating within a system where you are informed of what to do and then constantly graded against that, that's great. But when you have to go out and be a self-starter and do your own thing, that's fucking hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's doesn't really feel creative either. If you are getting told what to make, you're pretty much just getting paid to take orders, and it's not really creative. When did you leave your job? Was it around when you were 18 for when you were working selling shoes?
Oh, interesting. Adidas. I left Adidas when I was 17. So I did that for about a year and a half or so. As soon as video production was making enough money, I was like, fuck this. It was not fun. It was not enjoyable. I wasn't learning anything really. And more than that, it was time taken away. Like when I did my Skype interview with, Fred Hatfield, who's like a legendary powerlifter, I did a fuckload of research for that, right? Yeah. Like I reached out to people that he had lifted with back in the day and asked them questions of what I should ask about. Like I went really ham on those things, but like working 40 hours at Adidas took a lot of time away from doing those things. So as soon as I had enough money, and it didn't need to be much because I was living at home, I was like, cool, I'm going to make the plunge. I'm going to jump.
And that's part of the overarching theme. One of my key pillars in educating people is self-awareness, which you clearly had from a very young age. You had gathered enough money, so there's some financial fitness in that. Where did you learn the money stuff from at that age? Because most kids these days, they have debt. They're on bloody Afterpay or Zip Pay or whatever you call it over there, where they like pay like buy it now, pay for it like 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
To be clear, Seth, I was not good financially. I was not.
Okay, all right, interesting.
I was making enough every month to be like, all right, I'm making enough, but I was spending that every month too. Okay. I was the fucking kid that like when me and the homies would hang out, we were going to Red Robin and I would pay for the bill or whatever, like because they weren't working or whatever, they couldn't do it, right? Like,
right. Very similar to me then.
yeah, probably. Yeah. So like that's, I was not. I honestly didn't get a grip on finances until I moved back to the Northwest from New York City, just because I had to, because New York costed me so much. I was in a position where I was like, I got to figure this out and get smarter about it. But yeah, dude, in high school, I was an idiot. Like I ate out all the time, like all that shit.
Yeah. The third pillar is pivoting, and pivoting is being able to shift and take the risk and take the leap. And you managed to do that. Did you have a contingency plan, a backup plan? If it went south, what were your thoughts at the time when you were like, fuck it, I'm all in on this, I'm done selling shoes?
Just that I was living at mom and dad's place. So I had that fallback, Mm-hmm. I think maybe one day I'll figure this out, but I have this very strange, like, tension of, blind faith in my ability to figure it out. Not that I can do it, but that I'll figure it out or a version of it out. and at the same time, like a insane level of insecurity around me being awful and nobody giving a fuck. And I think that that is probably due to a lot of chemistry that occurred when I didn't have the opportunity to control anything. And I think that's what has led to being able to make those kind of decisions. Like I just randomly chose to move to New York City, living in a small, like I said, Seattle earlier, but not Seattle, like a small little town in Washington State. And that was a big jump. And then I moved back to Portland randomly. And then I literally moved from Portland to Las Vegas to ride my Harley more because I felt like something good was going to come of it. So I think that um, the blind faith that I'll figure it out allows me to have confidence to do things that are absurdly stupid on paper. And the insecurity that nobody gives a fuck and that I suck makes me try so much harder to do it in a way that will work, I guess. Um, yeah.
No, I completely relate to that. Completely. I I remember when I was taking a leap out of being a high school teacher. This was at the start of 2020. We all know what happened that year, and to be able to go, you know what? I've got 12 months of I can go back to this job. Let's see if I can build a business again from and like
Yeah.
with my personal training, I built that when I was in the middle of studying in university, and I didn't utilize social media at all. It was just SEO back then, and I left only because I didn't want to train staff. I just couldn't be
Yeah.
bothered going through that glass ceiling and having overheads of my own gym. Um, I mean, I guess if I read Alex's books now about the gym launch stuff, I probably would have helped.
Probably.
but but yeah, the pivot and the contingency plan, and then just going all in. It's just like one of my good friends. He owns a gym actually. I asked him this question, and he said, "I don't have a contingency plan. This is what I want to do. There's you figure it out, or you do something else."
That's cool.
Because
I'm not
yeah,
that brave. I always have a
yeah,
contingency plan. Always
yeah,
have a backup plan. I'm
yeah.
I'm the biggest planner in the fucking world. But one thing that I want to hit on, because knowing who's listening, like the the other thing I think actually that gave me confidence to do this is I did what everyone encourages people to do after high school in like junior high and high school, which is try a bunch of shit to
Mm.
find out what you like. So by the time I got to video, I was young, but like I was pretty damn sure this is what I wanted to do because I had tried a bunch of shit. I'm the kid that was probably undiagnosed ADHD, right? Like for sure. And I went through a phase where I was really into mountain biking, drumming, road biking, bass player, power lift. Like I could just go on and on and on. Magician, like actually going in on it, not like like make the salt shaker disappear. Like I've tried a lot of different things when I was a kid, and a character that I resonate with or gravitate towards is Curious George. And I think I was Curious Caleb as a kid. And I just tried a lot of different things. And so, like I said, when I got to video, I felt fucking compelled that, like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And that's also where I got that confidence. So I think for kids, a lot of them don't try enough shit. Like high schoolers don't try, it's like stay in your lane, you're the jock, you're the goth, you're the musician, you're the drawer. Like fucking try a shitload of things, especially when your parents, got your back.
Yeah,
Like
don't pigeonhole yourself just because someone said, "Hey, you're good at this. That's your path now." It's like,
yes.
well, if you don't like doing it or love doing it, yes, it's a skill, but how do you utilize that skill for something that you love? Figure that out. That's the magic in it. And now with like AI technology, that's easier than ever, right? Brainstorm a whole ton of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
in your 20s, I remember reading this Twitter post that you sent to Gary to start a conversation. What made you get into the whole social media part of it? You know what? I'm going to start Twitter. I'm going to make an account. I'm going to start to talk to people. What inspired that? What made you go, oh, let's give this a go?
Well, I had like social media accounts. I had been posting random skits with my buddies on YouTube, like around 2007, 2008.
Mm.
And honestly, I think Twitter, like I mean, I've never gotten traction on that platform, never tried or anything like that's like my, but it was the platform that you know what it was? I saw very quickly that there was a lot of celebrities on Facebook, Instagram, um, and they were not accessible. But I started very quickly noticing, because this was fucking early. This was like 2009,
Yeah.
2010. Twitter was a place where like you could get in front of anyone. Like fucking, big name fucking musicians were responding to people. I think Taylor Swift was like engaging with, like, it was just like, what on earth? And I had just read Crush It. And so I was like, well, the guy that I want to talk to isn't a musician, it's Gary. And so I just figured I would tweet him. And I was blown away that he responded. But yeah, I would say the majority of my early tweets are probably more cringe than anything. Just an angsty emo teenager.
just like Facebook back in the day as well.
Uh-huh. Oh God,
just got up this morning. I love the sunlight. That's your status update.
Or here's like a really nasty sepia filter over my morning toast. Yeah, because everyone needs to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Back then, it's a time capsule now. I wish the MySpace thing was still around. All the shit that I put on there, Jesus.
I'm sure something of that nature will make a resurgence at some point.
So we hit up, you hit up Gary, and he responded, and without going too far into it, because you would have been asked this question 1,000 times, what was your mindset next in terms of getting the next gig, and then obviously Gary giving you an opportunity? Just talk about the part where what were you doing just before Gary's opportunity?
I was working as a freelancer, and my two main consistent clients, I had one-off clients here and there and stuff, but my two main consistent clients were two I-502 cannabis companies in Washington State. And I was learning what it's like. I was learning what it's like to advertise under immense amounts of regulation. Like on a different level. Like we did a whole holiday campaign on Facebook, like video ad campaign for cannabis on Facebook. And we did that. There was a lot of workarounds that I had to come up with, but like we made it happen. So that's what I was doing before. And honestly, man, the mindset that I had going into it, once I knew like this is happening, I think I just told myself I'm there for 6 months, and that's it. You just have to make it 6 months. I always kind of as a kid thought it'd be cool and probably advantageous for me to do 6 months in New York City at some point. This was the best version of that. And I remember Tim Ferriss, I was really listening to his podcast heavily at the time, and he talked about how he does 6-month experiments. I was like, okay, cool. There's zero pressure here. If it doesn't work, I can go back home, and everyone will be like, wow, that's so cool. You made it out of the small town. You went big or whatever. And 6 months hit, and I was like, honestly, severely depressed and in a really tough spot because I had moved to a city where I didn't know anybody. Hardest city to live in. Your commute is fucking absurd. The cost is wild. And yeah, it was a very tough time, but I just was like, okay, cool. Another 6 months.
And how long did it last?
3.5 years.
Amazing.
3.5, 4 years, something like that. 3.5 years technically, on the lease 4 years, but with COVID, I ended up coming out west 6 months early.
And this was really, again, that's when the TikTok stuff really started to blow up. And that's where you recommended TikTok to him to go for all in on.
No,
was that not you?
No, I did not recommend it to him.
Okay.
Yeah, the way that this works for 99.99999% of Gary's competitors or other people in the space is they have a team that's prompting them this shit, and they're like, I'll tell you, I don't know if there was a single, other than like little moment, like TikTok trends that, he's not like scrolling all day and seeing. No. I'd be like, hey, there's this thing trending, let's film this. But with Gary, it wasn't like, hey, we should be on TikTok. With Gary, it was like Gary sending a voice note to the team 8 months before anybody else was even talking about it, being like, guys, there's this crazy thing emerging right now. Musical.ly just sold to ByteDance, and we need to double down. And then it was like a couple months later, he's like, this is fucking working. Team, I want you to go all in on TikTok. Caleb, run the TikTok initiative, work with Avatar and Katie. There was literally 3 of us, and we built that out. So just
Yeah.
to be clear, I did not recommend that to Gary.
I
That was
love how it
him.
was him. I love how it was him
Oh,
because it just validates a lot of his truth. And I've always known this. I'm like, it would be so handy for me to not have to research this shit and be on the pulse, but it's something I love doing. And for him, for me to hear that, I'm just like, of course he said that. Of course he's the one that did it.
yeah.
God knows what he looks at and what he looks up to get that shit 8 months early. People that'd
Well,
be interesting.
I'll tell
All
you.
right, let's do it.
He's always looking at the App Store.
Hmm.
I shouldn't say now. So,
Yeah, of course.
like I still talk to the man. We got some cool things coming here soon, but like
Yeah,
um as far as like the day to day, I can more speak to when I was on the team. He would check the App Store all the time to see what are like the new apps that are bubbling up, right?
yeah,
And then he wouldn't download the app and start. He would go to Twitter and look at what are people saying about the app. What is the like when he would notice a trend or an artist is emerging? It wasn't that he was consuming the music and being like, "Wow, this is a great rapper." He was looking at what are people in the culture that get it. What are they saying about this individual that is signal to me that they're gonna? That's how he's predicted so many fucking rappers that pop off. It's not that like he is the god of rap. It's that he is unbelievably good at paying attention to what people are saying online, what is what the reaction in culture is, and then making
yeah,
a takeoff of that and reacting to it immediately.
yeah. That's that day trading attention stuff. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
In your 3.5 years there, what was your biggest takeaway personally for your skill set that evolved?
Doing the right thing is always the right thing.
Hmm.
That was the number one thing by far. Nothing else stands out even close. Because if you're playing this game correctly, you're going to do it for a long time. And if you're doing things for a long time, the world is small. And if you act like an asshole and a dick going out through the world, cool, you might be successful your first 5 or 10 years. But what does that last 10, 20 look like? Ugh, tough spot. You sowed a lot of bad seeds. So I know that was a soft skill, not a hard skill. But I think for me, I have always kind of, growing up the way I did and going through what I went through, I have always kind of been this is going to sound douchey as fuck and like I'm self-aggrandizing, so please hear this through a humble tone. I've been a very nice guy, right? Like my mom tells me a story about like when I was a fucking kid, we went into Taco Time and we were going to go get some food. That's like a nicer version of Taco Bell for people in the PMW. Everywhere else, sucks to suck. We walked in to go get lunch or something, and I saw a man who was experiencing homelessness in the corner. And I guess I told my mom, hey, I want to give him my lunch and my little Bible that I had with me. Right? Like, I have always been somebody who is trying to think about how everyone else feels about what I'm doing, empathy, thinking, all that. But up until Gary coming onto the scene, there was this big mantra in society that like nice guys finish last. And like,
Mm.
Steve Jobs, as amazing as he was and as much innovation as he drove, he fucked it up for a lot of people because I think a lot of people looked at him as the rule, not the anomaly. I think he's the anomaly. I think the amount of people that can operate and treat people the way that he did and have success, they exist, right? Like some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world are that way. But then when you go the next tier down, the majority, it doesn't work that way. You have to be at an exceptional, you have to be a mutant, in my opinion. And so Gary came onto the scene and like gave permission to guys like me, like, no, it's okay to lead with empathy. Leading a team and leading an organization with empathy is not a bad thing. It's not a weak thing. It's actually stronger. So I know I just hammered the fuck out of that, but I do think like that was one of the biggest things. I can give you a hard skill if you want, but I think that's what will pay dividends.
Soft skills is great. Like the empathy stuff is like it's a game of people. That's all we're playing here. Mm-hmm. It's a game of people, and then what problems do they have, and do we have the skills to solve them for those people? If we do, we're in business. If we don't, hey, I know a guy or a girl that can do that, and that's again the game of people. You're connecting.
100%.
I read this book called Super Connector. Such a brilliant book. Like just being able to connect people and being a super connector, but also going, is this guy going to waste this person's time? No, probably. I'm not going to connect them. But if they sync up, I feel good about myself because I've just connected two people without gatekeeping anything because I'm like, oh, I can do it. No. So that's social media agencies try to do that, and we'll get into that in a second. When you, what was next after Gary? Was it? Did you have anything between that and Alex, or was it straight away Alex?
Two things. So one, I transitioned over to VaynerMedia because, dude, I mean, I will say it as many times as I can, but it'll never come across the way that it actually is. Gary is the most supportive person I've ever worked for in my life. Unbelievable. I told him one day, I was like, hey, I love you and I love what we are making, but I am kind of losing my mind editing these clips all the time now. Like, I feel like I've tapped what I'm capable of doing on the team right now. And I'm very interested on what it looks like on the agency side of things. I film you in all these meetings, and that's the shit that now I'm the most excited about. Would you be open to me going on to one of the teams for one of the clients and working on agency side? He was like, yeah, brother, of course. Gladly. Let's do it. And like, it happened. It wasn't like, yeah, in like 9 months we'll get like, it happened immediately. Unbelievable. And then COVID hit. And all of the major brands were like, we're not doing any advertising. So Gary, being who Gary is, he immediately pivoted and was like, all right, cool. We're going to create an original series called Marketing for the Now, where I'm going to have all of these huge brand like CEOs, CMOs, heads of HR, because of the things that were going on at the time, come in, and we're going to just have discussions here. Dude, that led to a lot of good things for Vayner. He's obviously clearly very smart when it comes to content, but that's what I was working on and producing. And then when Gary sold Empathy Wines to a company called Constellation Brands, they reached out to Gary and were like, hey, we would like to bring Caleb over onto the team, but we want to get permission from you before we reach out to him. He said, yes. They reached out to me, and I was excited and hesitant at the same time. Cause I'm like, I've only worked for like smaller orgs, right? Like startup style. Vayner was the biggest company I'd worked for to date. And this company is a Fortune 500. There's like 11,000 employees worldwide, like massive, totally different. And so I talked to Gary, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And he said, you're probably not going to like it because it's going to be very slow. There's politics and stuff, but like, you're going to learn a ton. And I think it would be good because you'll help build out the direct to consumer team. And, his company or his brand Empathy was over there. Like, he wanted friendly faces over there and stuff. So yeah, I went over and did that for about 2 years. And that's when I was living in Portland, Oregon. And then I randomly chose to move to Vegas to ride my Harley more.
Tell me about the serendipity of that, and then coming across the Homozis.
Yeah, so I moved to Las Vegas, and I remember my girlfriend was like, we were doing long distance at the time. So she was in New York and I was in Portland, and she was like, why are you moving to Las Vegas out of anywhere? And I was like, it's cheap. It was cheap. It's very quickly become not cheap anymore, but it was cheap. Definitely cheaper than LA. It's sunny all the time, so I can ride. But I told her, I was like, I also just have this weird feeling that something crazy is going to happen within 2 or 3 months of being there. No idea what that is. At the time, my best friend and I were building out like a little side project called Wild Media, where we were making like like Harley stunt rider content. And there was a big stunt scene in Vegas. So I was like, maybe the big thing is going to be, we get to do a lot of work with this character named Sea Bear, who's absolutely incredible. If anybody hasn't heard of Sea Bear, you should look him up. He does like 90-mile-per-hour wheelies on an 850-pound bagger going down the freeway. It's fucking absurd. Anyways, I thought it was going to be in line with that. And then a really good friend of mine, Jason Marino, reached out to me and said, hey, dude, there's this crazy opportunity. There's this couple in Vegas. They're looking to build something similar to what Gary built. And you just moved to Vegas. And I know we ignore all of these reach outs because they're never serious. They never actually know what the investment is going to be, and they're not willing to make that investment. He was like, but this one I actually think is serious. I think they are. And yeah, the rest is history. I got put in contact. We had a couple of phone calls, and then we moved forward and built out. It started off being like, hey, we want to bring in our D-Rock. We want somebody to follow us around and film.
Mm-hmm.
And through our conversations, we came to the point where I was like, that's not what we want here. We want to build out like a media team. Like,
yeah, and I remember Alex was saying he wanted to get at least 1% better, and then eventually learn how to do it in house, and then go, sweet, cheers for teaching us. And that was you. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Just going back to the financial fitness part of things. Where are you at financially? Obviously, spare the personal details, but what was your habits like by the time you got to Vegas? And what were you doing in the intern before you came across the couple?
Well, so when I was in Portland, I got to a point where I had realized the financial place that I was in because of New York. Do I regret it? Fuck no. It was so worth it. I would do it times 2. Like, I would go into double the amount of debt. Like, it was such a good investment. But I left New York with some debt. Nothing crazy. Like, I know people probably go to like the extremes. I'm talking like not a whole lot, less than 25 grand, less than 15 grand. But I wasn't making a whole lot of money. So it wasn't like I had the ability to really pay that down. I also had horrible spending habits. I liked buying clothes. I liked going out to eat, all these different things. And so I got to a point where I was like, all right, I got to figure this the fuck out. Like, I think I was 25, 26 at the time, maybe 27, probably 26. And I was like, this is just fucking pathetic. Like, I am living paycheck to paycheck, and at the end of the 2 weeks, like, damn, those last 3 days, I'm eating like ground beef and rice for every meal. And this was not that long ago, by the way. And I think I just started to see a path forward by doing more side projects. So I had not really done many side projects at Vayner. I did like one when I first moved there, just to get my footing and keep me busy, honestly, and make money because it was expensive. In Portland, I decided, okay, I'm going to consistently take on side work, and all of that is going to go towards paying off debt and then eventually building a savings account. And so that's what I did. And I just took on as many gigs as I fucking could. But then we started building Wild Media, and all of that time went to a passion project. And that passion project wasn't really providing income. It was paying for parts to upgrade my Road King. So like, I wasn't spending the money. I was getting them for free. But yeah, I just got to a point. But by the time I left Portland, I had paid off all my debt, and I had 3 months of savings, like expenses saved up. And I was like, I'm rich as fuck, you know? Like, I was like, I can do anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. I was told, Sev, my whole life growing up, what you do when you have no money is what you do, or what you will do when you do. Not true for me. As soon as I started, like, once I had that 3 months and my debt was paid off, dude, suddenly I was like, why are we going to Cheesecake Factory tonight? Like, let's cook dinner at home. Like,
let's have ground beef and rice again.
Yeah, dude. I literally started, like, all of a sudden changing. Like, when I was going out to the bars and getting micro brews that were like fucking $12 for a 16-ounce pint, all of a sudden I shifted and I was like, let's drink Miller Lights at home before we go out, right? Like, I made a lot of shifts. Kids don't drink. But like, yeah, it was weird. The more money I had, the better I found myself, like my habits were with spending, because I wanted to keep more of it, I guess.
Sorry to interrupt one last time. This is actually a sponsored post. If you need to run ads for your service-based business and you don't know how, there is one agency I would trust in the entire country and the world, probably. Where You, spelt W-H-E-R-E and then the letter U. They literally teach you how to run Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and create a whole funnel for you to get more business. And I use them myself. They've taught me how to do it, and I get all of the business, which is fantastic. If you want to learn how to run ads properly and dominate your industry and win all of the clients, hit up Where You. Back to the episode. Mate, I'm so glad we got to this part, because I see a lot of creators, I see a lot of freelancers. Almost all of them I talk to have no business and financial structure in mind. And I'm trying to figure out why. Is it because they were too busy trying to create shit in high school and didn't pay attention to maths or business? Or is it just because it's not interesting to them? What I found is I'm a creative first. I didn't give a fuck about the business side because I just want to take photos. But then someone said, hey, Sev, can you print that out and I'll pay you $50? I was like, absolutely, that sounds amazing. And then someone said, Sev, can you second shoot for a wedding with me? I was like, absolutely, that sounds fucking stressful, but I'll give it a go because I don't have anything to lose. And then after that, I was like, this was fun. I could do this myself. Next wedding, $600. Wow, this is great. What the fuck does a CRM mean? Figured that out pretty quick. Then I got a tax accountant because I couldn't do that shit. And then, holy crap, I'm making north of $100,000 a year, more than my teaching salary. And I had to speed run the business side of it, the financial side of it, so that I had something to show for it after. And that's late 20s for me. So mid 20s to, like the later end of that 20s era, that's everyone. But I'm just like, how do you shift to that mindset? I guess it's trial and error, right?
Creatives are not good with money and business practices, and they are not good at speaking publicly and talking about their work, not because there's any inherent reason for it. It's because they are encouraged to be bad at it. You're a creative. You're supposed to be behind the scenes. Don't worry about presenting. I'm not going to have you do the presentation. We'll have the sales team do that. You put the numbers together and give it to somebody else. They'll present it for you. I know you don't like to talk publicly. Like, of course you're not good with finances. You're a creative. They get pushed into a fucking lane, and they are, I think it's a very similar reason, I don't know if we should go down this, but I think it's why a lot of women in their work go into certain career paths, because they're discouraged to not do the other ones, or they're never encouraged early on. Like, boys are taught to like adventure through the forest, and girls are taught to do their makeup and play with Barbies at home, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the same problem, I view that as, personal opinion, I view that as like maybe not the best thing. I think the same problem happens with creatives. I think it's like, okay, you are a creative, so that means that you aren't good and can't be good at any of these other things. So we're never going to give you an opportunity to learn it. I get really fired up about it because I was a victim of it my whole life. I fucking hated speaking in front of anyone my whole life until very recently. The last 3 years, I was encouraged and given opportunities to do that. And so then I built that skill. But my excuse going into it was, oh, no. That's for other people on the executive team. They're good at presenting. I'm the creative. I'm just the behind the scenes guy. And it's like, well, that sets you up for massive failure in your career, because the people that actually move in their career are the ones not the best at the job, but they're the best at describing the work they do on the job. They can advocate for themselves the best. That is what gets you furthest in your career. Unfortunately, not just merit.
Yeah, unfortunately, absolutely. I was fortunate enough to have a teaching degree and had the practice of talking to 32 kids every hour on the hour, 5 days in a row. And then I remember when Clubhouse came around lockdown, I had nothing else to do. And I was up at 2 a.m. talking to Americans about shit that I did in the last 6 months. And people were putting me to the top of the thing and getting me to talk. And then people would message me saying, do you have a course? I was like, no. They're like, can we work one-on-one? I was like, fuck. And then someone paid me 5,000 USD to teach them what I was talking about. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't even have a funnel. I didn't have a landing page. The guy just goes, yeah, how do I pay you? I was like, I don't fucking know. You're from the UK. How does that even work? And then I was like, holy shit, I can actually do this. And now it's just consumed by 99% of people that go the how to build a brand are filled with trendy social media tricks that are no longer relevant 6 to 12 months.
Oh, dude, you're preaching.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's tactics versus principles. Real quick, do you mind if we pause real quick and I run and take a quick piss and then we resume?
Yeah.
Right. Sick.
Yeah, I'm gonna just run my ads.
Sick. Okay, cool.
Yeah, go for it.
I'll be right back.
All right. As Caleb takes a piss, we go to the the advertising break. This podcast is sponsored by my own studio, Bright Czar Studios. It's the studio that I'm filming this in. We do talking head videos, done for you stuff for your business. If you have something to talk about, we can record it. We also have a podcast set up, custom made with different chairs and backgrounds that you can bring your colleagues or people in your industry to discuss what you know and what you are known for and everything and all the nuances in your business. So Bright Czar Studios. We've got a second sponsor right here. We're going to insert it now. Thank you, Brandon from Where You. And then finally, we also have the Idea Academy, IDEA Academy, one word, so the end part A is the Academy. Idea Academy is built for grade 10 to 12, 3 years. If you don't like the traditional school, but you have an idea or you have a business mindset or you have something that you want to build, go to Idea Academy and hit them up, because they will get you that business mindset and nurture it further, connect you with people in the industry that you're in and mentor you, which is a good shout. And now, back to the show. Caleb's returned from his piss. He's broken the seal. And he's
broken the seal,
beer,
sir.
So he's probably going to have another one in 15. But
I wish it was a beer.
Oh, dude, Liquid Death. How good. Dude, I was trying to, I reached out to the distributor here in Australia for Liquid Death, and I got through to them. And I hate, this is my personal, I'd say weakness, but I'm working on it. I don't like asking for shit.
Okay.
Because I know probably some childhood trauma shit. But I finally was like, fuck it, let's do it. So let's just figure out Liquid Death, right? I try to DM them. Obviously, everybody's probably DMing them. I messaged Gary, even though we've had a couple of back and forths. Probably not the best guy to ask, but, you know, I was like, fuck it, because I see he's an investor in it. And then I went to the distributor and I said, all right, you guys are distributing this in Australia. What do we do? And they're like, we're keen. However, something came up and they can't do it. They're like we'll have to wait 12 months. I think it was, I don't want to go into politics, but apparently tariffs, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, fucking Liquid Death, bro. Liquid Death. If there's a contact in the US that goes, fuck yeah, we'll sponsor this 6'10" dude with our Liquid Death. He sounds cool.
I love it.
Shout outs.
They're a great brand.
So we're talking about the no longer relevant trends in 6 to 12 months. My biggest pet peeve, and I've actually just completely turned off my social media apart from when I post myself now and engage with obviously people. All I see every fucking day is carousel after carousel of these 5 hacks will grow your brand. Here's how I got 100,000 followers. Here's how I did this and this and this and this. And I'm just like, you haven't moved your following in 6 months. How does this translate to sales to the people that you're trying to teach to grow, to go viral? What the fuck? Anyway, you take over.
I think it starts with they aren't even defining what the desired outcome is. So it's like, you know, these carousels you're referencing of 5 ways to, you know, grow your brand to 100K followers or whatever.
Yeah.
It's, and you hit on this, it's missing the element of like, why are we doing this and what are we wanting to accomplish? For most people, that objective is completely pointless. More followers is not what you need, right? Like that for a lot of people with their offering, that's not the big constraint. That's not the issue. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that shit's annoying. I think for the most part, unfortunately, what it is there's about a million different minions out there that consume the content from like 2 or 3 individuals that are putting out original shit. And then they take it, repurpose it into their, you know, community and their course bullshit. And then they regurgitate it in their short form or their carousels. Because that carousel you describes like 90% of the ones out there. Because they're all the fucking same. So yeah, I hate it too, dude.
So what's the antidote to that? If I was to genuinely want to help someone, what's my play in this?
You need to figure out what you want to have happen. What is our goal? What's our desired outcome? Then the next thing would be, what would you have to be known for in order for that outcome to occur, right? And then in order to be known for that, what do you have to do? Like, what are the actions that you have to do to become known for this thing to get the outcome you desire?
So
And
you're
then
talking
we
about
take
reverse engineering.
Correct.
Right.
And giving us a guiding light to inform the decisions we're trying to, like, if I am just existing as a human and I go to a restaurant, there's nothing really to determine what I'm going to choose to eat. But if I know that I'm trying to lose 20 pounds over the next 3 months, the way I will choose what I do at the restaurant changes because I have a desired outcome that I have outlined. And so my actions will line up towards that and increase the odds that I get what I want. But a lot of people are treating content like they're just walking into a restaurant and eating. And I am a walking testament. That's how you get fat. It's true. You're just not paying attention. And then one day, all of a sudden, you're like, damn, I've been doing all this eating and it's been taking me in the wrong direction. A lot of people wake up one day and they're like, I've been making content for a year now. My business isn't growing. And this is just fucking annoying. And it's because they never established where they're wanting to go. And so they didn't take intentional steps. They just took random steps. So you'll end up somewhere. But I guarantee more often than not, it will not be where you want to be.
No. So one of the principles here is establishing what you want to happen within your brand or your business.
Yes.
What else is there? So are there any other things that like should creators and businesses owners focus on to build a brand that lasts rather than chasing those latest tactics?
Yeah, I think once you figure out this part, it informs everything else. And so like once you know that, like, you know, something for me that I've had for years, probably the last 10 years that I've known that I want, my desired outcome is to work with whoever I want, whenever I want, on whatever I want. Now, is that happening right now? No, I'm getting closer, but I'm not there yet. So it's like, then I figured out, okay, what would I have to be known for in order to do that? Well, I'm getting close on that part. Okay, cool. There's a few more things that I need to be known for. All right. So in order to be known for those new things, what do I have to do? Well, some of those things I don't know how to do. So what do I have to learn in order to do it? That informs the majority, in my opinion, of the principle-based decisions you should make in building your brand. The rest comes down to tactics. And I think the tactics you choose to put into practice are filtered by that original North Star we created, right? So like for me, for example, and you're going to fuck with this because you've gone a similar route. If I were to define what I just told you, which is I want to work with whoever I want, whenever I want, on whatever I want. Okay, cool. That's a great goal. The type of people that I'm going to want to work with would not want to associate with a motherfucker that's out there selling a 197 course. Right?
No.
Now, what would have been the easiest way for me to make a lot of profit in Q1 of the first year of my business? Release a fucking course that I sell for, right? So what I've decided, what I know my outcome is going to be, or what I want it to be, and hopefully happens, informs all the tactical decisions that I make. Because I know that, yes, on a granular level, will that lead to increased revenue and profitability for my business in year one? Fuck yes, of course. Is it the most profitable thing that you can do? Pretty fucking much, right? Like, that is easy. Does it hurt my long-term goal? Yes. And so the problem is if you haven't defined what the long-term goal is, you make decisions that make sense right now. Selling a $197 course. That makes sense for me right now.
Yeah.
Like, that would make a whole, trust me, we ran the fucking numbers. It would make a lot of sense. Yeah. We would charge more than $197 for it. But we decided, based on the desired outcome that I have, we're going to release this 6-hour and 22-minute course for free. Not on our website, not through an opt-in, on YouTube.
Yeah.
That gets me closer to my desired outcome than all the other alternatives.
I see the benefit of that. Like I've looked at I've studied your funnel and your email threads, and they're brilliant. It's something that I'm like, right, that's one of my goals one day, is to create something like that from my perspective about what I've done. But I'm not there yet because I'm still so in the thick of it. And like I can use that same example with my stuff. Like my immediate was wedding photography. Like people go, "Oh, you're a wedding photographer because it's got a lot of money." No, I actually enjoy doing it. It just happens to be a lot of money really quickly. But then I realized I'm selling my time 24 months from now that I may not want to be there for, and
Dude.
that's not sustainable. And then people are like, "Sev, I want to be a wedding photographer." I was like, "Do you want to sell a weekend 24 months from now where you might have a child? I'm about to have a kid in 2 months. I'm done with weddings. Like I've got 5 weddings to go. Last one next year. I'm shitting myself because I've actually got one booked in June, which is
Oh
like
shit.
dead dick of the middle of due date.
Oh.
So I've already got my second shoot as a contingency plan with me. So she goes into labor that day. I'm like, sorry guys, he's taken over and he'll do a good job anyway. But like going back to your point, when I realized that within 2 years of starting the business, and I was already crushing it using Gary's terms. And then I realized my long-term play is to be anywhere when I have nowhere to be. Exactly what you said. I was like, how do I do that? All right, I need to invest in something that pays me a lot of dividends or get into shares, maybe something else that comes up soon like Facebook or Twitter. Like, Gary had that opportunity early. And now he's pretty much playing with house money, but he's doing it out of his heart, which is why it snowballed. And it's the same with Alex. But like for me, it's like there's something bigger out there. But long term, that mission helping the kids is not a monetizable one. So I need an engine in the back pushing money out so I can just go, what up? Like I spoke to this guy recently. His name's Jim Penman. He's got the biggest franchise business in the Southern Hemisphere. And he's from Australia. He started mowing lawns in the 80s. And dude, he does all of this all because he's got a PhD in history and realized he needs to research the survival of the human race.
Wow.
And he goes and he funds $3 million a year with that company
Jesus.
for his research center. That's the mission. What's your ultimate mission? Do you have one? Do you have a Mars landing? Do you have a New York Jets sort of goal?
No New York Jets sort of goal. I think there's 2 of them. One of them is to be very intentional with what brands I partner with, knowing that I'll try and say this in a less douchey way. Historically, if you look at my batting average, if I work with somebody, they're probably going to get a lot more awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I'm making the right people gain awareness. So I want to be really thoughtful with that. And I want to make sure that I amplify good and things that make the world better, not worse. So that would be on the professional side. My altruistic endeavor, I think, is to help a lot of the young characters that are younger versions of myself. That, and this is something that I have barely even cracked, just because I have to get more comfortable with being more vulnerable with certain things that I've gone through or whatever. But I see it in how I lead people and manage people, is I look for the element in them that I resonate with. I don't hire people like me. I actually try to hire people that are not like me. But there's always going to be some little element that I'm going to gravitate towards that maybe I struggled with early on. And it's my goal to help, if it's like an insecurity or a shyness or anything like that, it's my goal to show them a different world where that doesn't exist. So like an example I'll share with you is we had somebody join one of the teams that I was running, and they were an individual who had never done video professionally. They had been working at like a furniture store basically before, selling furniture. And they came onto the team, and they weren't doing a great job their first couple of weeks. Like, they were cutting clips and not doing the best. And on meetings, they just never said anything. Like, even if I would ask for their opinion, it'd be like very brief and like very reserved. And I just was like, I remember being there. I remember being terrified of sharing my opinion and all of that, and being worried that if I share an opinion and people don't like it, that they'll never listen to me ever again. So if I share something, it has to be dialed. Like, I have to be able to back this up hardcore. And there's many reasons to that, but I remember I had a one-on-one with this individual, and we sat down, and I was telling them, like, hey, you're on this team for a reason. I picked you and hired you for a fucking reason. And right now, I'm not getting any of that reason. You're not bringing who you are into this. You're trying to be like everyone else, and you feel like you don't deserve to be here because you're not as good as them. But you were picked for a reason. I need you to bring who you are to the team. I need you to bring your, what you think is weird ideas. This person wasn't like as obsessed with like entrepreneurship and business content as maybe some of the other people on the team. And I was like, that is your competitive advantage. That's why you're here. You understand a different element to culture that maybe some people that are too nerdy on the business side of things don't get. Right? And suddenly I watched this individual begin to be one of the most vocal people on the team, and to the point where new people that joined the team would describe this individual as like the biggest cheerleader on the team, advocating for other people, giving shout outs, giving love, giving support. And this individual has been one of the most supportive people for me during this whole making content process. They're constantly DMing me, sending all these encouraging, but it took a little bit of that. So I think, I'm not articulating it very well. I'm more verbally processing right now, but I guess what I would say is doing more of that.
Yeah. You're unlocking someone. You have been, you've given them a window of opportunity. You've given them permission, even though they didn't really need permission, but people just do. And it's the same with when I was looking at my entrepreneurship side of things. I thought that the term was wanky in my 20s, but I didn't really define it properly, because I've been wanting to make money since I was 10, since my mum gave me my first job, helping her with her tailoring. She's a tailor, and she like alters pants and stuff back then. She couldn't speak English, so I would tailor the pants and I uncuff the bottoms of the legs. She paid me $2 per leg to do that. I was like, sick. And then she gave me my first $50 note. I made my first 50. I was like, fuck yeah, this is sick. I like making money. And then that was always from there. But she unlocked that. And then when I help others unlock that for them, like I teach people the three things strategy, the price anchoring stuff. I learned that from Alex. And I tell people that. And then they come back to me a few months later, say, Sev, that strategy works so well. I've made over $40,000 using that strategy. I was like, fucking thank you, Alex. But thank you for teaching me to be able to give to someone else. I don't have a fucking course about it because it's free on the internet. I just said, try this. And when they come back, you're like, fuck. Feels so good, man. And that's what you've done. You're unlocking that. When I saw your 6-hour thing, I was like, this guy fucking gets it. I was like, I instantly wanted to talk to you. I don't reach out much because I don't like asking people for shit. And when you said yes, I was like, fuck yeah, this is going to be a sick chat. But yeah, dude, like your North Star, your main goal is, just helping unlock people's potential.
Yeah. And I guess that actually kind of ladders into both. It's the people that I'm leading, but also the personalities and brands that I'm working with. You put that very well. Thank you.
No problem. Well, I've been doing it for ages with the kids. I'm like, what do you actually like to do? On my door in my maths lessons, it wasn't Mr. Moz's maths. It was Mr. Moz's life's lessons featuring maths.
Oh, that's cool.
Kids vibe with that.
I love that.
Now, I'm not sure how much time you have left. I've still got a whole bunch of questions, but
we have until the top of the hour. That's
Excellent.
what the calendar invite says. So Perfect. That's what I'm here for.
Perfect. Excellent. So usually a buffer. I want to go back to the ROI for brands, get a little bit more technical, and we'll come back to you. We'll segue back, and the audience can have an adventure, and they can give me shit for not chronologically doing it in order. But is there a strategy you use to ensure the push for ROI doesn't undermine the authenticity or trust of the brand?
Do you mind adding just a little bit more color to the question?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
So going back to your 197 course, or people getting in a rush to monetize, they will do whatever it takes. I see a lot of people just do whatever it takes. And they message me saying, Sev, I want to start a course, but I don't know what in. I was like, don't fucking start a course if you don't know what it is in. Take your time to realize what you actually have to do. Don't start pushing an invisible pyramid scheme just because you paid $5,000 for a course that unlocked you to go, I could do that. Because that's all I see, right? And then all I see is this facade, and then they go down rabbit holes of just doing the same thing online to grow their audience, to then use that as their leverage to go, I made a course because I made this many followers, right? And I'm just like, bullshit. But then I also see businesses, right? They clearly started a business because they have a passion for a service or a product that they want to provide to the community because it solves a problem for them. But their content is, it's not rubbish, but it's just going down that path of, we're doing this because it works and it builds the audience, or they sell out, or even influencers, they sell out, and the authenticity and trust goes fucking out the window. I get brands and clients come to me saying, Sev, we want to do it like this brand. I'm like, that's bullshit though. But they're like, oh, but it works. I was like, does it though? How does it work? Like, tell me more.
What is working?
What is working?
Like, what does working mean?
Like the whole fucking, what's that peanut butter brand people were obsessed about it on TikTok? That was starting to do like Gen Alpha style content that was completely unhinged. And people were like, Sev, are you starting to do this? I was like, no, that's weird. That's not my shit. But it's just like, have you ever had a time where, you had a client that just wanted to just go, right, I want the top of the funnel no matter what?
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
It depends on the dynamic with the client. So if it's a relationship where I think it's more long-term, what I do is I just play it out.
Yeah. So it's earning trust and attention, and then the short-term need to drive conversions and results. How do you balance that? That's really what I'm trying to say. Understood.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Slightly different. So, because the top of the funnel thing, I think, is just like a vanity play. The other, so what I would say is, ultimately, if there's a discrepancy between those things, I would come back to, we probably have not defined what we want the outcome to be. Because if we've defined what the outcome that we want to be is, that kind of informs the decision here, in my opinion. But what I would look at is a lot of people are not looking at the correct numbers. So they look at views, subscribers, blah, 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 blah. A huge mistake. Actually, this is a really cool story that I'll share. We had a big client W for one of our clients just released their first YouTube video, and they put it out, and it has a third the amount of views. Now, within 7 days, so this is actually impressive, but I'm saying it as a negative. It has a third the views of the video that they had previously uploaded 6 months prior. So 6 months has, X amount of views. This one has a third of it within 7 days. I think that's pretty good, but still it's less, right?
Yeah.
And so as the client, they're like, okay, it did well, but Caleb, you're here. We thought this was going to fucking go nuts. And what I looked at is they're a UK based company, and they service UK only residents. They don't work with people anywhere outside of the UK. When I looked at the last 2 videos that they had uploaded, they had done 3 times better. On the first video, the most recent one, the UK was not even in the top 5 of the most viewed countries. Less than 1% of viewers were from the UK. The second one was the UK was number, I think, 3 on the list. At 4.9% of viewers were from the UK. Yep. The video that we had worked on and released, 87% of viewers were UK based. That is a 10x increase in qualified viewers. Okay? But if we wouldn't have looked at the metric that actually mattered, we may have discouraged ourselves from continuing down the path. What we changed for them was they were trying to compete with US creators and make business content that was like global. But it's like, well, how many people are making business and entrepreneurship centric content only for the UK? Far less. There are some, but far less. And the big dogs that are from the UK, they're not making UK specific content. So like, I think what it is, the other thing too is people are saying, you know, we're doing this because it's working. But back to what we were talking about, what is working? Like you're getting more views, like cool. But if you're not trying to be famous and you're just trying to build a business, well, the views don't pay the bills, right? Conversions do. And so you should be tracking conversions, not views. And so like with this question, I just say it comes back to we have not properly defined what we want to have happen.
Yeah.
And so we have no filter on how to make decisions. That I'll always come back to that because it's like, it's the same, you know, that like somebody would talk about with building a business. When you actually build true core values that you make decisions off of, everything always comes back to that. Every decision you make comes back to that, right?
100%. With the UK improvement of that video, let's just quickly go 2 or 3 things that helped that video become more UK based, UK centric, for the viewers out there who want to replicate that.
We took the title, and instead of saying dollars, we said pounds, and instead of just ending it with like the statement, we said statement in the UK. That's it.
And what about like description and all that SEO shit? Really doesn't matter.
I mean, so this is
so you don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
No. Let's do it. Let's do it real quick. Let's do it real quick. Okay. SEO, descriptions, those things, in my opinion, are like the idea of your YouTube video is like walking every day for the rest of your life for your health. Changing the description a little bit is like, ooh, I'm going to piss some people off probably. And I am not a scientist, so I don't know jack shit. But it's like going from drinking your water out of a plastic cup to a mug that's not plastic. I'm sure there are benefits, but is that going to be the biggest driver of like my longevity? In 20 years, we might say otherwise. But what I'm saying is basically, it's like, that is such a minor little tweak that anybody who isn't in the top 1%, I would recommend don't worry about that shit personally. Like I think all of those tiny little minutia, those are for the dogs that are at the top that are like inching back and forth between who's on top. And that's where I think you get it's not like it's not going to help you. But if you're, you know, sub 100K on YouTube, that's not the thing that you should put your effort into, is like researching like how to optimize the SEO of my video. It's like, no, let's come up with fucking better ideas first. Yeah. That's what actually is going to move the needle.
Have you heard of the book They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan?
I have not.
Okay. So that's
not saying much though. I'm not a big book guy.
No, that's fine. So part of my play, my whole strategy and tactics over the last few years was just literally answering the consumer's questions as videos. That's it. And to be able to do that within the industry, not just my specific skill set in the industry. So wedding photographer, but in the wedding industry. When I had a celebrant question in a forum on Facebook that would say, what is the best side for the brides and the girls to stand on at the top of the aisle? What's the best side? Any celebrants out there? And they would answer the question in text, right? Everyone would answer with a comment reply. I would just scan all of them, and I would like, well, I've done this hundreds of times, so I know for a fact that this is the best answer. And then I would do that. I would get to the ceremony early before everybody else rocked up, and I'd make a quick video. This is where you stand according to the wind. This is why, because of the hair. The girl's hair goes over, the guy's hair doesn't move. So if the wind's going behind you, over you, that's where the guys stand. And then on the other side is where the girls stand. I got bookings from that video because celebrants are too lazy to make the videos themselves. But I'm just like, I'm taking all of this.
What are celebrants?
Celebrants are like the ceremony people that married the two people.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Or the pastor or
Yeah,
whatever
the officiator, yeah.
the officiator.
Okay. Understood.
Yeah.
No, I got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You guys say it way cooler than we do.
Celebrants, yeah. I didn't know that wasn't a word in America. But yeah,
It might be. I might just not know anything.
But it's also like just optimizing that video to be found in my city because that's where all my clients are, right? And to like before the TikTok algorithm, or not really the algorithm, but the search thing changed. I think it was like a couple of years ago. I was like the top 20 wedding videos in Australia. It was just all me. You type in wedding photography Australia, it was just me. Wow. There's so many bookings, right? But now it's like going back to the book They Ask You Answer. When I read that book last year, I was like, what the fuck? This is written about my strategies and shit. This is cool. And it validated like what I was doing. And I was like, all right, cool. And there's a new book coming out called Endless Customers. The guy's name is Marcus Sheridan. I actually posted his podcast episode the other day. Brilliant dude. And like, if you ever have a chance to just watch some of it, fucking super helpful because it took me away from the vanity metrics and more to the how do we make money by posting videos online. Now, a personal question, but more so still for everybody here. This is more of a business question. So the kids, this is something for the videos out there and why you want to put it out. Putting out videos on YouTube is free. Putting out educational videos about what you know and your authenticity and your authority in your space that you know is free. Embedding those videos onto your website because Google owns YouTube and then you have 2 and even 3 touch points across the internet is free. Why don't people do that? Because they're getting sucked into that social media viral shit. It's slowly starting to shift. I saw Gary's couple of clips recently about AI. AI search is not looking for viral videos. It's looking for real information. How do we get that into people's heads? And Australia is fucking 4 or 5 years behind, right? When I went and hung out with Vayner Media in 2023, I was like, one question I asked the guys was, who's your competitor? They're like, we don't have anyone because they still don't fucking listen. We even tell them they don't do it. And I was like, holy shit. I go back to Australia and everyone's just going, yep, we'll do reels for you. Yep, with no fucking strategy. But what they're not doing is that AI optimization. It's not SEO. It's like AIO, EO, whatever fucking you call it. But if I'm going on ChatGPT, I saw this clip yesterday from Gary. He's like, stand up everyone who does Google AdWords and then clap if you... Yeah, there you go, that one. And I was like, I've been saying this shit for 3 years. I've been saying this shit for 3 fucking years. Yeah. And Snapchat, right? When they released the AI bot 2 and a bit years ago, I started talking to it. I was like, all right, let's give this a go. It said, what do you like to do for fun, Sev? And I said, I like to go to Fremantle with my wife. Fremantle's a nice place that we like to go to. And it recommended me 2 restaurants straight away. It's like, oh, awesome. That's awesome. I recommend this place and this place. And I'm like, how did that work? Okay. And then I responded, say I start a restaurant business in Fremantle. How do I get you to rank me to the top? And it told me. It fucking told me. It goes, we look and search for Google reviews, an updated website with relevant content that's new, and social media presence all at the same time. And I was like, so this AI was able to search up in 10 seconds all of the different businesses with those keywords, Fremantle being one of them, and ranking them based off of those 3 metrics. Holy fuck, this is what everybody needs to do right now. I started to yap about it. No one fucking listened. How do we get this across? And I do this because, if I can convince someone, it's a more client for me. But also, more importantly, how do we convince them that it takes a while? Because all of them going, no, I'm just going to run ads. Like, do you want to have your brand survive long term, or do you just want to keep running the mill with ads? Anyway, that's my rant.
I wouldn't
go for it.
I don't want to ever be in the business of convincing people.
Okay.
So, like, if they're not down, like, I've never tried to convince people to take social media seriously or make video content, or it's not a winning game because like you've done this, I'm sure, with clients in the past.
No,
Like
absolutely not.
it's going to be a fucking drag the whole way through. So like you convince them to say yes, but now you got to keep convincing them all the way through. So like I would not recommend trying to convince anybody of anything personally. And honestly, I think it's super interesting. I feel like I know enough to execute on it right now. I don't actually feel like I am an expert enough to share my thoughts on it yet. I think AI search is super important. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
It's something I'm trying to learn more and more about in the background, but I definitely don't feel like I am qualified to speak to it at any granular level. But I love it, dude. And like what you shared, like that makes a lot of sense. I think if anything, what I would say is don't try to convince people, but all you got to do is show them the last two versions of this: social media and the internet.
Yeah,
and the way that people react to AI right now is the same way we both watch. Well, I was too young to watch people react this way to the internet, but I watch people react this way to social media. I remember at Logos, my first big boy job, I went to the director of marketing and I was like, hey, we're doing kind of more traditional things. Have you heard of this Gary Vee guy? He's got some cool ideas. And I remember the guy was like, oh, no. That social media thing is a fad.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you were so mistakenly wrong. And the same thing is going to happen here. So that's, for me, when I find myself being the crotchety old man who wants to like hide in the corner and be like, well, that's for the youngins. Like, I just try to remind myself of who I have witnessed do the same thing and stick their head in the sand.
Yeah. We'll go back to the brand stuff. I only touched on that because it translated directly to that UK video that you mentioned. It's like 400 more of those will almost 100% guarantee clients.
So what's interesting there, that's so cool you picked it up that way. So you took it as like an SEO change. For me, it was a mindset shift. It was, we don't care about views that can't be customers. So what I told them after, like, because, I discovered this and I send them the report afterwards. I'm like, guys, this is fucking absurd. Moving forward, we have to look at the percentage of UK viewers, not just percentage. We need the absolute number and we need to compare that moving forward, not the total number. Because if you don't service people in India, who gives a fuck? Like that view, they're wonderful humans and all humans matter. But that view does not help our business.
Yeah.
So why care?
I have another funny example. One of my clients that I was teaching this all to, they had a majority of their following from the Philippines. And they're a builder. And I'm like,
oh, dude,
that's not helpful at all. And I figured out that they were outsourcing the social media management to the Philippines. And I was like, fuck.
That sucks. That blows. And here's the crazy thing though, and this is a really big point. So many people never look at what the impact is to the business, and they're being reinforced and they're interpreting the data correctly, but impartially. And so they go down for a year or two of investing time, money, and their brand equity down this rabbit hole that, it's getting lots of views and traction. But to your point, are all the views in a country that you can't service?
Exactly. I look at this as like a lottery ticket analogy. Every video is a lottery ticket that's perpetual.
Yes.
And then if you can create omnipresence everywhere, people will find it. And my favorite analogy is, do you ever discover a TV show 3 seasons in? What do? You go back and you watch it from the beginning. All of those tickets, lottery tickets, episodes from seasons of the past that people will go back to eventually, whether it's fucking Gary's wine library stuff back in 2006. People go back and watch that episode because they're like, I want to watch that first episode. Fucking 25 years later, or whatever it is, 20 years later, that people like, I need to go watch that. He wouldn't have even had a clue that was going to happen. But I was like, that's what's going to happen here. It's like patience. Oh, I'm in 300 view jail. I was like, yeah, until you hit the right audience that actually needs what you do. And then they will consume everything that you do. They'll go down a rabbit hole and then it snowballs. For me, it was 159 videos before that happened. People don't have 159 videos worth of patience. But then when I tell them 2 years booked out, they're like, fuck, 159 videos for 2 years at bookings is pretty good. Going back from the brand story framework, so you emphasize the storytelling. Why is having a clear brand story so critical for a creator or business?
I think people connect with stories the most out of anything. A really good real-time example that we're watching of this is Mr. Beast.
Yep.
Watching his evolution in content creation. Have you seen Beast Games by chance?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a very clear leveling up in the storytelling.
Yeah.
And I would argue, like, this is anecdotal. No data to back this. This is Caleb's personal opinion. I don't love watching his YouTube videos. I fucking loved Beast Games.
Yeah.
Because I connected with it more. Like it was more. So I think storytelling stands out. I think that, especially if we're talking in the education space for a second here, the information is the commodity. What I put out, a lot of people haven't talked about some of the stuff that I said in that course. Now that that's out there, not my competitive advantage anymore. That information. The fact that I put it out for free, you could argue is a competitive, but like that information is not, right? The stories that I tell, nobody can regurgitate. I mean, they can, but they'd be fucking lying through their teeth, right? Like, and so I think that is your competitive advantage. As AI continues to develop, this is something I am comfortable talking more about, is like, as AI continues to develop, me being smart on brand is not why you're going to come to me and consume my content. Because there's going to be a million AI Calebs or whatever, a million AI Sevs that are going around sharing this knowledge, right? Yeah. It's going to be the stories that I tell you and the way in which I tell you. And the thing that people get hung up on there is like, oh, that means that I have to have a certain personality in order to connect. No, it means that you need to share your personality. Correct. If you share your personality, the reality is as humans, all you got to do is look at high school. Like some personalities resonate with more people than others. That's fine. But that's the personality you need to lean into. So I would kind of, I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. So this is a work in progress that I'll share, but like, I think that it's a combination of story and personality when it comes to a personal brand. And personality, again, like I think people hear that and they think that like you need to be loud and yell at the camera because like that's the personality of all the vloggers on YouTube up until recently. Like, no. Personality is just how you behave in normal life, in private life. That needs to be displayed publicly.
Yeah. So once you define your brand and where they should start and obviously what they want to end up in, so your brand journey worksheet, you say nail down who they are and what they stand for, but once they have that clarity, they should approach positioning themselves uniquely through their story building and their personal story, because the crowded market out there is they're just all doing the same thing. You come in with you as the USP, the unique selling point, you automatically stand out. I had a literal physical advantage with wedding photography. My tagline on my website is hire me, no double chins at your wedding, because I'm fucking taller than everyone. That's unique incredible. Angles no one else can get.
I was
like, utilize that. But how do I teach someone else that? Not everybody's 6'10". Sev, I want to become a wedding photographer like you. Good luck. Good luck. Unless you get like knee surgery or whatever it's called.
Yeah. It's a really tough exercise.
It's such a tough exercise. And when people come to me with their product or service and I look at their personality, I'm like, can I work with this person? Can I actually bring out the best in them authentically? How do you deal with that?
I think people need to be a little bit more observant. Meaning, I think that actually the world gives you the answer. People just aren't listening. People compliment you on your competitive advantages all the time, but people just aren't paying attention. So I think it's more looking at like, what are the people that you respect, admire, that know you around you? What are they saying about you? Yep. You know, like me being reliable and dependable. I went into my job at Vayner with that being the goal. I want to be known for that. But I only knew that because in previous places, that's what people had told me. They had said like, man, I love working with you because like I need to give you a little bit less context than most people, and I just know it's going to happen. And I was like, okay, that's something that and I didn't think about it the way that I articulate it now. Not at all. I just somehow in my head knew people say that. That's a good thing. I should do more of that. And I should tell people about that. But the way I tell them is by doing.
Do you have any tips on finding that sweet spot between what you love talking about and what your audience truly cares about? You know that, like, you know the Venn diagram. You got what you like creating, and then what others like you creating, and that perfect sweet spot in the middle. Is there like a formula to speedrun finding that middle bit, apart from putting out a shit ton of content to get the data back? Because that's one of the things I know you talk about.
Yeah,
quantity to get the quality.
Yes, sir. You're describing what I would articulate as the distinction between art and content.
Mm-hmm.
Art is when you make it for yourself. Content's when you make it for them. So I think I'm just a fucking consistent individual. It comes back to, what do you want to have happen? What is your goal, right? And what are the expectations along with that goal? Expectations need to be lower on performance for art than content, because art was made for you, and you have no idea who's going to fuck with that. Content, if you do it correctly, you made it for them, knowing what they would want, right? So you need, and by you, I mean the person listening, needs to figure out what is it that they want to have happen, and then how do they want to do it, right? Like for me, I am not super far in my own content creation game. So I'll speak to where I'm at right now on this, which is I'm passionate about serving the audience. And so what the audience needs, I am excited to talk about. However, if there's ever a moment, like when you asked me about AI search, if I'm not interested or I don't know enough, I just won't talk about it. Literally,
don't push it.
Yeah, like to the point where like I'm on a podcast being asked a question and I'm choosing to be like, I'm not smart enough in that area right now.
Yeah.
That's not what I said, but that's ultimately what it boils down to, is like it in theory, a lot of people, I think, don't do that because their ego is too attached to it that they need it. But like for me, I think I make myself more vulnerable by talking about things I'm not interested in or not an expert on than the opposite of that. I think the opposite is, or you say absurd shit that is on the internet forever.
Or you can't back it up because you don't have experience. You mentioned the importance of explaining concepts at a third grade level so they're easily understood. How do you approach simplifying complex ideas for clients for that broad audience without losing substance? And while still keeping the content engaging. Yeah. Because like, again, I reference Alex for this because his stuff is so easy to consume, but I know that it would be applicable to like a S&P 500 business as well. How do you craft something like that?
I think one, usually what it is being able to articulate something that is complex that you are doing that comes natural, oftentimes. And so I think it's getting really good at asking yourself, what are all the little tiny little things that I do that ladder up to this big action? I think that's a big one. I would say that's the biggest one actually, is being able to chunk down, right? Break things down into smaller bits. I also think that some people, due to scenarios they were in, are better at it than others. It's a skill you can gain for sure. But like for me, I grew up as a pastor's kid. So I fucking had analogies given for every goddamn thing imaginable, right? And so I'm incapable of talking without giving at least like 5 fucking analogies every sentence, I feel like. And so I think, there's circumstances that people are in that make them better at it. But yeah, I think ultimately, like if somebody were to be like, how do I get better at it? It's being able to take the bigger complex thing and break it down into tiny little actions.
Yeah. Have you ever had to check a client for being genuine?
What do you mean?
Like you've asked them a question, they've given an answer, and you're like,
oh yeah, plenty of times. But the way I articulate it is very careful, very careful.
Go on. I just talk some bullshit, and how do you tell me, Sev? I don't know.
I would say, Seb, I love what you just shared. Thank you for sharing that. I fucked up and didn't have the camera in focus, and I would love to re-record that. Here's a couple of other things that maybe I know of this story or this example that you didn't hit on that I think would be really helpful. And here's one other thing. I know you have a little brother that you really care about and that you're constantly trying to give advice to. They kind of tend to make some poor decisions. Think about this moment right now like you're talking to them. I don't know if you have a little brother, but like
Little sister.
that's okay, cool. That's how I typically try to do it. I never tell them, hey, that didn't come across genuine, because the worst thing in the world you can do, like, that wasn't authentic. Be more authentic. Be more real. That wasn't genuine. Like, these are terrible directives. All they actually do is put a magnifying glass to what went wrong with no action steps of what to do right. And so you just actually end up making the person go further into their turtle shell rather than opening up and being genuine as you want.
Yeah, the genuine part is really important, and without that, it's like, oh, geez.
Also, I will say, it's within the context of the individual. I will never
Yeah,
push them further than they need to be pushed. So,
of
like,
course.
there are some people that I've worked with that when I started with them, they were viewed as a robot. Literally, people would say that in the comment section. And we wanted to get to the point where we were fully authentic and fully genuine ourselves.
Yeah,
But like day one of making that transition, I wasn't like pushing it. I would ask for like a tiny little tweak, tiny little thing. And oftentimes, what I would actually do is tell them, give me a laugh before you start saying this. Wait, like a forced laugh? Yep. Give me a forced laugh before you say this. And was it super genuine? No. It's the process of working towards it and
yeah,
knowing, again, like you asked me a question a while ago of how I would handle something, and I said like I wouldn't address it, I would just wait. Like, if I know that we're going to be doing this for a long time, I'm making decisions on a bigger scale rather than granular in the moment. So like another example on this point, and then I'll shut up on it, but like if a client that I'm working with is filming and they're getting tongue tied and just like fucking up on a script, and we have 3 more videos to film after this, I am not going to be the one that's saying, push through. I'm going to be like, fuck this video. I didn't even like it anyways. It was actually a dog shit idea. This was all me. I came up with this. I'm the moron. These other 3, though, the rest of the team came up with these. These are way better. Let's just move on to those.
yeah.
In my head, I'm like, I really wanted that video. But I don't want them to know that. I want them to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, no big deal. We can move on to momentum is everything, in my opinion.
Right. We're going to do a bit more of a speed run now in the last 10 minutes that we have. Thanks so much. I love to just kind of back and forth, but more just speed value now, Caleb, if that's all right.
I will try.
Content Hackathon. I'll give you context for this. For a creator or business with limited time or a small team, what strategies can help them produce more content at scale without sacrificing quality?
I recommend on a quarterly or monthly basis having what is called a content hackathon. This is a day dedicated to innovation, not doing what you know works. The majority of teams fail because they are data backed, and that sounds crazy to say, but data will take you only so far. Data, in my opinion, doesn't provide a whole lot of room for innovation solely. And so I like to dedicate an entire day where the team is instructed to block off their entire day and do creative that they do not normally make. Something that is completely off the wall, different than their day to day, something that is innovative.
But Caleb, what if that doesn't work?
What do you mean it doesn't work?
We wasted a whole day and we don't get the results we wanted. What happens then?
What result were you wanting?
More views and more sales.
Wrong result desired for the day. Great question, dude. When I originally kicked these off, I had an improper incentive. We would post all the creative that the team would make over the next week or whatever, and we would track performance in the first 48 hours. And then whoever won with the most impressions would get a gift card to Amazon. What was I incentivizing? Doing something safe. So we changed the incentive to no longer is it about performance. At the end of the day, Everyone uploads their content to a Google deck, like a slide deck, and goes through and presents. And the rest of the team at the end votes on who did the most innovative and different thing on the team. And we incentivize that. So the goal is not to produce a viral thing. It's to do something completely different. The beautiful byproduct is in doing this. Oftentimes I have found this unlocks the new style of making a short form clip, the new, caption style, whatever.
Content systems. What systems or tools do you rely on to keep content creation flowing smoothly?
Ooh, this is not a rapid fire. This is a whole 2-hour conversation. But what I would say, here's what I would say that will shock some people listening, but help most. 99% of content teams that I talk to do not use a project management tool like an Asana, a Monday.com, or anything like that. And they do all their communication through text thread. And all of the knowledge lives in one human's brain. So the number one thing that I would say is over communicate, more communication across less siloed conversations on teams, more making everyone aware of everything, having due dates and like timelines in one central location that people can see and understand and know how them taking an extra day on this edit affects the rest of the team rather than them just thinking that they live on an island and it doesn't impact anything. And then I think number 3 is build some sort of communication cadence that isn't just like psychotic madness in iMessage.
Love that.
A lot more depth to that, but that I think is the easiest answer to give you quickly.
We'll do another one in a few months.
Beautiful. Can't wait.
All right. You mentioned the style, the caption style. How do you feel that a whole generation of marketers is copying your style?
Well, I did not create that style.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so. I just curious.
An agency that they were working with before actually created it. And it is wild how it impacted everything. I would say the next 3 waves of what you saw with captions, we did create that.
Yeah.
When I came in, mission number 1 was like, we can't keep using this caption style because all of these slimy motherfuckers that the agency had nothing to do with, just people were like trying to copy the top dog, right? And so they're all doing it. But the way brand works is if we're doing it, the average Joe doesn't know how to differentiate between the two. So we're the slimy motherfucker. So we immediately wanted to pivot, right? Like Trevor, right over here, he created like this very popular style now, which is like the cool colored text, simple with like the neon outline and everything that everyone's doing now. That was us. Nice. And it's cool. I think it's cool. But the real thing is like the moment that starts happening, Patty Galloway talked about, I know I'm giving you a longer answer. I think it's important. Patty Galloway talked about this on the Colin and Samir episode where he talked about not innovating and moving on too early. Like Colin and Samir were talking about how everyone's copied their thumbnail style. Everyone does that exact same thumbnail style for their podcast interviews, blah, blah, blah. Should we move on to something else? It's no longer distinguishable to be us. And he was like, why would you let people bully you out of your format, what you created? And I hear what he's having to say. So what I would say is keep using it while it's working. But the key is once you notice everyone's starting to do it, in the background, work on the next idea because you don't want, like, just because I created it, I don't think it's like I'm getting bullied out of it. It's like, no, dog, I created this and deuces, I'm on to the next one. Like I'm on to the next bar if we're bar hopping for whatever reason. Like that's how I think of it. So don't drop it right away, but don't only stick with what works because then you'll get left in the dust.
What are your thoughts on the current ADHD style over-the-top visual assets that flood short-form videos?
What do you mean?
An example. Give me an example. So the Ali Abdaal style, where it's like just graphics and this and that, and captions are animated and everything, and you see the guy, and then you see B-roll, and then it's AI fucking shit. Too much?
Not too much, not too little. It is an answer of what are we wanting to make happen? If you're making educational content, what you want to have happen is for people to do something different after watching the content than they did before, right? They change their actions. Okay. So then your decision-making framework should be, does this little graphic that I'm flashing up make it easier for them to change what they do after watching or harder? Is it enabling them to take action or is it distracting them from taking action? And that'll inform the decision.
Yeah. Where do you think short form video is heading next? Will it become more raw, simpler, straight to the point, or what do you think?
I think it's just going to continue to get more and more granular on interest. So I think like there's going to be a world where, you know, I don't know if Gary's going to ever do this, so I'm not saying he's going to, but I'll use him as an example. There's a world where Gary has, you know, a couple of different pillars that he speaks to. And maybe in the future, instead of having one one channel, you know, one Instagram page, one TikTok page where he talks about all of those, maybe every one of those pillars is a Gary Vee page.
Kind of like Barstool Sports does it. Yeah. Okay. I get
exactly. That. I think it's just going to go more and more closer to what we care about.
Yeah, I like that. In your view, what really counts as evergreen content or style?
Wow. I've never been asked this question.
Yes.
What counts as evergreen? I think something that is principle-based, not tactical-based. So when I tell you that in a video where I talk about call something out that will get attention in the first 3 seconds of a video, that's a principle. That's an evergreen concept. Saying shake a can of soda, crack it open, and it goes flying everywhere to catch it, that's a tactic, right? And so that's something that will work right now, but in 3 years might not be useful. So I think evergreen content is something that will be, it's timeless, right? It's something that is a principle that can be applied to be able to figure out what the tactic of that day is. Did that last part make sense? I think that was really good, but I don't know. Like it's a principle that informs you how to develop what the current tactic is. That's what evergreen content is, I think.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. All right. Finally. Oh, are you still there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. Hello?
Oh, Jesus.
I'm here. But only for 2 minutes.
Hello? Hello? Are you still there?
I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. It's... All right. We're good.
Okay.
Nearly made it. Shit. For listeners who want to truly understand what brand is, define their own, and amplify it to the world, what would be your parting advice?
Build what you want to build. Don't build what you admire that others have built. I think the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they look at all of these big names in the space and they try to replicate what they've done, but they don't got it like they do. I don't got it like anybody I've worked for does. So I'm doing this differently. And I'm building it in a way that is conducive for me to do it long term. So like I'm putting out one YouTube video a month, not a week or every other day or some absurd shit like that. I'm building something that I'm going to enjoy and want to stick to. I look forward. We're filming a promo video for the video dropping on Friday tomorrow, and I can't fucking wait. I've been telling Trevor how excited I am to film it. That's what I would encourage you to do in building this out is make content fun. Don't make it a dread because you will not stick with it. Just like fitness, right? Like if you dread going to the gym, like you ain't gonna fucking get in your car and drive. So make it something you look forward to rather than you get anxious and dread thinking about.
Love that. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, Caleb. Thank you so much for your time. For everybody out there, all the information about Caleb and his world in the description. You'll be able to reach out to him and get into his world. And hope you enjoy the conversation. Free to reach out to me. Leave a comment. Share this with someone, and leave a review because apparently that's helpful for podcasts. I hear.
And if you got to this point in the episode, drop a comment with what your favorite beverage is, because we'll know that you actually listened.
I love that. I'm going to use that from now on. All right, guys, as always, good thanks.